This week on Hometown Ghost Stories, there is a town on the Mississippi River that is the childhood home of Mark Twain. It's known as a place with steamboats, fishing holes, whitewashed fences, and kids running wild along the riverbank. That's one version of Hannibal, Missouri. The other version deals with the ghost of a girl hanging in a cave, a lumber baron who continues to haunt his home, and a figure in a long dark coat who stands by a cemetery fence after dark. Mark Twain knew all of it. He just hid it in the stories that everyone read to their children. This is Hometown Ghost Stories, Hannibal, Missouri.
Hometown Ghost Stories contains serious and often distressing events and is not intended for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
I can feel again the creepy joy which quivered through me when the time for the ghost story was reached, and the sense of regret, too, which came over me, for it was always the last story of the evening, and there was nothing between it and the unwelcome bed.
The older boys said she was real. Tommy Briggs did not believe them. He was 11 years old and had been lied to before. Samuel Clemens had told him the previous summer that there was a catfish at the bottom of Bear Creek of such extraordinary dimensions that a grown man could not wrap both arms around it. And the thing about Sam was, he told it so well, with those gray eyes steady and that slow Missouri drawl, that you always wanted it to be true. You found yourself halfway to the creek before the better part of your judgment caught up with you. But here he was. The cave swallowed them one by one, their torches throwing orange light across the limestone walls, and Tommy stayed close to the back of the group because he didn't want anyone to see his hands shaking. The older boys moved fast, confident. They'd done this before. They knew all the turns. Left at the split, right where the ceiling drops low enough to graze your hair. Straight through the narrow passage where you have to turn sideways and breathe shallow just to pass through. Sam stopped. "There," he said, and Tommy looked. The cylinder hung from a rail that crossed the passage like a beam. Copper on the outside, starting to turn green. Suspended in the dark with a chain on each end, turning so slowly you couldn't quite catch it moving. The torchlight caught the object, and through the glass was a girl. She was 14 years old, or had been. Her hands were at her side, and her skin was pale as moonlight, and her dark hair moved around her face in slow, lazy waves. She was the most terrible, beautiful thing that Tommy Briggs had ever seen. The older boys were nudging each other, laughing low. One of them reached for the top of the cylinder. Tommy didn't wait for that. He stepped forward. He didn't know why. He just needed to see. He raised his torch, leaned in, and looked through the glass at the dead girl's face. And he was close enough now to see the small details. The pale of her skin, the curl of her fingers, and then her face turned. Sharp, fast, the way a sleeping person snaps awake from a nightmare. Her head swung toward him and her face pressed against the glass, nose first, then cheek, then that open eye. That one open eye, pressed against the inside of the cylinder, looking at Tommy Briggs from a distance of perhaps 4 inches. He had always been told that dead eyes did not look at you. He revised this opinion and ran. He said nothing to the older boys. There was nothing to say, and no time to say it besides. He could hear Sam shouting something behind him, but it was already swallowed by distance because Tommy was moving faster than he'd ever moved in his life, his torch streaming behind him. The cave was doing something to him now. The passages that had looked familiar coming in looked wrong going out. A left where there should have been a right. A ceiling that was lower than he remembered. He took a turn, found a dead end, and turned back, took another, and the torchlight bounced off walls that all looked the same, wet limestone and shadow. He heard something. Not the boys. Something else. A sound of something dragging across stone. He ran faster, And then at the far edge of his torchlight, she was there. Not floating, not luminous with any ghostly light the way the stories had always told it. Just standing in the passage ahead, the white dress and the dark hair, and the patient quality of someone who has nowhere else to be. And before he could make sense of what he was seeing, she stepped sideways and walked into the cave wall, not through a passage, into the solid rock, the way you or I might walk through a doorway, without ceremony, without any apparent awareness that walls are generally understood to be impassable. And just like that, she was gone. Tommy didn't stop. He ran through the place where she'd been standing, and the air there was cold in a way that he did not care to think about. Then he saw light. Real light, gray and distant, the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. And he ran toward it, and came out of the cave into the afternoon sun. He ran all the way to town. The thought of slowing down did not occur to him. He came through the door of his father's general store at considerable speed, the bell above the door registering its complaint. And his father looked up and said his name in a way fathers say a boy's name when they are not yet certain whether to be angry or afraid. Tommy could not speak. He stood there with his hands on his knees, chest heaving, and when he finally looked up, he looked past his father, past the counter, out the window. She was walking down Main Street, unhurried, the white dress, the dark hair. She walked past the women with their baskets, the men in their good coats, and the wagon that was being loaded outside the hardware store. She moved through all of it, and none of it touched her, and none of it ever would. Nobody looked up. Nobody stepped aside. Nobody saw her at all but Tommy Briggs, who stood with his face against the glass of his father's store on a perfectly ordinary afternoon in Hannibal, Missouri, watching a dead girl walk through town. I'm Rob Coakley, and this is Hometown Ghost Stories, Hannibal, Missouri. Hannibal, Missouri sits on the western bank of the Mississippi River. It was founded in 1819 by Moses Bates. He saw on the river bluffs and the fertile land a town that could be prosperous. It grew quickly, as river towns often did in those days, fed by steamboat traffic and the restless westward push of a young country. It is best known as the boyhood home of Samuel Clemens, who arrived here at age 4 and left at the age of 17. He would spend the rest of his life writing a version about it he called St. Petersburg. You may know Samuel Clemens better by another name, though, Mark Twain, and this is his town.
The cave was an uncanny place, for it contained a corpse, the corpse of a young girl of 14. It was in a glass cylinder, enclosed in a copper one, which was suspended from a rail which bridged a narrow passage. The body was preserved in alcohol, and it was said that loafers and rowdies used to drag it up by the hair and look at the dead face. The girl was the daughter of a St. Louis surgeon of extraordinary ability and wide celebrity. He was an eccentric man and did many strange things. He put the poor thing in that forlorn place himself.
Mark Twain Cave was discovered in the winter of 1819 by a local hunter named Jack Sims, whose dog chased an animal into a small hillside opening south of Hannibal. Word spread quickly, and within weeks it had become a playground for the curious. A dark winding maze of 260 passages cut through soft limestone, stretching miles underground. Young Sam Clemens explored it endlessly. In his autobiography, he wrote that he tired of most things, but never the cave. And then, in the late 1840s, a man came to Hannibal who would change the cave's story forever. Dr. Joseph McDowell, depending on who you asked, was either the most brilliant surgeon west of the Mississippi or a man teetering on the edge of insanity. He founded the Missouri Medical College, and his students held him in deep admiration. He was a mesmerizing teacher, boisterous and feisty, the type of man who filled a room. But to others, he was something else entirely. And the citizens of St. Louis? They would call him Mad Dr. McDowell. His eccentricities were legendary. He was convinced he had powerful enemies everywhere and walked the streets of St. Louis wearing a brass breastplate under his coat. At the medical college, he had stockpiled 4 cannons and 1,400 muskets. And in the basement, he kept a bear. When angry mobs gathered outside the college, which happened more than once, McDowell is said to have released the bear on them. According to one account, one time, the bear simply yawned. The mob fled anyway. The mobs had reason to be angry. Grave robbing, by all accounts, was practically a class requirement at Missouri Medical College. In the late 1840s, a mob stormed the college after a German family discovered their daughter's grave had been emptied. They were right to suspect him. He was heading to the attic to hide the body when something stopped him cold. A glowing apparition of his dead mother. This apparition told him the attic wouldn't work. Instead, she told him to lay on a dissecting table and pull a sheet over himself. When the armed posse arrived, they worked their way through the dissecting room, inspecting corpse after corpse, until one man looked down at McDowell and announced to the others, "Here is a fellow who died in his boots. I guess he's a fresh one." And they moved on. McDowell dissected the body the next day and was never charged. In the 1840s, McDowell purchased the cave outside of Hannibal. He wanted it as a laboratory. It was cool, dark, and what he thought would be undisturbed. But when his daughter Amanda died at the age of 14, the cave became something more. You see, McDowell believed that traditional burial stifled the soul of the dead. He believed that a different kind of interment might allow for the living and the dead to remain in contact. So rather than burying Amanda, he sealed her inside a copper cylinder lined with glass, filled it with alcohol, and hung it from a rail that crossed a narrow passage deep in the cave. He barred the entrance with a heavy iron gate and had a key made that weighed over a pound. The children of Hannibal found her anyway. Older kids would lead younger ones into the cave by torchlight, telling ghost stories as they went, working the smaller children into a state of pure terror. And then, when they had gotten close enough to the cylinder suspended in the dark, someone would unscrew the removable top. Twain documented what happened next himself, writing that it was common for visitors to drag the dead face into view, and the younger children would run screaming back into the daylight. Twain never admitted to taking part, but he saw enough. After 2 years of complaints from Hannibal residents, McDowell had the body removed and returned to the family vault in St. Louis. But something stayed behind. The room where the cylinder once hung is still called McDowell's room. Many of the cave's tour guides refused to enter it alone. Former guide Tom Rickey described what he encountered in the late 1990s in an interview that has since become part of Hannibal's ghostly lore. He said he felt a cold chill come over him, sudden and total, and when he turned around, she was there. A girl in a long old-fashioned dress with a cape and long dark hair, standing perfectly still. He tried to speak, thinking she was a lost tourist. She walked into the cave wall and was gone. Every description of her, from every witness, matches. Old-fashioned clothes, very pretty, long dark hair, and that same vanishing act. Not disappearing exactly, but walking through the stone as if it weren't there at all.
Our house is become a cemetery, but not in a repellent sense. Our dead are welcome there. We shall have them with us always, and there will be no parting.
Rockcliffe Mansion sits high above the town of Hannibal. with white columns reaching skyward and 125 windows catching the sunlight off of the Mississippi. It was built at the turn of the century by a lumber baron named John J. Cruikshank Jr. He moved in there in 1900 with his wife Annie and their children, and he would stay there until he died in his bed in 1924. The moment he died, Annie walked out, released the servants, packed a few things, and moved next door to her daughter's house. She never came back. The Tiffany glass stayed, the furniture stayed, the family's books, linens, clothing, all of it, sailed inside that house on the hill for over 40 years. In that time, it became the town's haunted house. The rite of passage for every kid in Hannibal was to sneak inside and race to the third-floor schoolroom, where an old map still hung on the wall. You tore off a piece and got out, proof that you hadn't been too scared to go all the way up. By the 1960s, 80 of those windows had been broken, and the city ordered the last surviving Cruikshank daughter to do something about it. She told them to demolish it into the ground. 2 weeks before demolition, local families saved it. When they opened the door for the first time in 4 decades, they found mostly everything still inside. Nothing had moved. It's a museum and bed and breakfast now, and the ghost stories follow. A 2004 film crew came out of their rooms one morning to find their equipment already running, only it wasn't plugged in. In other rooms, it wouldn't work at all. Guests have reported footsteps that walk to Cruikshank's bedroom door and stop. Visitors have seen Annie Cruikshank's apparition moving through the music room. And then there is the testimony of Mary McAvoy, who, with her husband Jerry, served as living caretakers for a number of years, and who had no doubt about what she was sharing the house with. Every night at 2 a.m, she heard the servant's entrance slam. John Cruikshank, coming home from his evening walks, same as he always had. Every morning, she had to remake his bed, because the bedding bore the fresh impression of a body that had slept there, and trailing behind him always, the smell of cigar smoke. In 1902, Mark Twain paid his last visit to Hannibal. On his final night in the town where he grew up, Cruikshank threw a reception in his honor at Rockcliffe. Twain stood over the grand staircase and spoke for nearly 90 minutes to 300 guests. He slept in the house that night, and he never returned to Hannibal again. Cruikshank was a cigar smoker, but so was Twain. Guests still report the smell of cigars drifting through rooms with no living source, and it's not always in the same part of the house. So when it reaches you in the dark, it might be the old lumber baron making his late rounds, or it might be someone else. Someone who came back to his hometown one last time, who walked out the door the very next morning and never saw it again. At least, not while he was living.
It was a graveyard of the old-fashioned Western kind. It was on a hill, about 1.5 miles from the village. It had a crazy board fence around it, which leaned inward in places and outward the rest of the time, but stood upright nowhere. Grass and weeds grew rank over the whole cemetery. All the old graves were sunken in. A faint wind moaned through the trees, and Tom feared it might be the spirits of the dead, complaining at being disturbed.
Established in 1837, the Old Baptist Cemetery is the oldest graveyard in all of Hannibal. A hillside plot of cracked and leaning stones, some so weathered the names have long since worn away. Mark Twain's father and brother were once buried here, though their remains were eventually moved. It's the kind of place that looks exactly like a haunted cemetery is supposed to look, which is probably why Twain used it as the model for the graveyard in Tom Sawyer. The cemetery holds the dead of Hannibal's earliest decades, prominent citizens, enslaved people, Civil War soldiers, children, the forgotten, and the well-remembered alike. Visitors on ghost tours report full-body apparitions and EMF readings that don't have a clean explanation. 4 figures in particular have been reported enough times to become part of the cemetery's legend. There is a small girl, around 5 years old, who appears between the headstones. She's always playing, darting behind the markers, peeking out, disappearing, and then reappearing a few graves over. She likes to play hide and seek with whoever happens to be there. There's a Civil War soldier seen drifting among the graves, unhurried, as though he doesn't know that the war is over. There is also a man named Edward, about whom almost nothing is known, except that he doesn't want you there. And then there is the one that gets mentioned the most, a tall figure in a long dark coat, standing at the fence line, just watching. He doesn't approach. He doesn't follow. He just stands there at the edge, watching you move through the dark among the dead until you look away. And then he's gone.
What is going on, folks? Welcome to Hometown Ghost Stories, episode number 194, covering Hannibal today. I'm Jesse Wilkins, joined by Rob Coakley. Hello, Rob.
One of my favorite towns that I've covered in quite some time. No disrespect to the other ones, but I was very fascinated by this town, and it looks really cool.
It's got some wild stories that I can't wait to hop into. We're also joined by Dave Wilkins. Hello, Dave.
Hello. Yes, this was the history of this town is pretty insane.
Yes.
It's a wild ride. What's going on, everybody? Hang out in live chat. So many generous, wonderful people hanging out. We got a lot of gifteds here. Jeannie came in with 20 gifted memberships. Whisper came in with 20. Lockwood and Company donated $19.99 as super chat. Papa Squatch threw 20 in. Laurie threw in 20, and a $20 donation from Tess that said for Ireland. So we'll put that towards the Ireland fund.
I'm guessing that was happy St. Patrick's month.
It is, yeah, we're there. We'll be close to Ireland, but going to everywhere but Ireland. Going to England, Scotland, Wales, and it's going to be a wild ride. We'll hop into that and give you guys more details as the trip approaches. But a week from tomorrow we depart, so it's coming up. It's coming up.
It's close. It is quite close.
Too close.
Yes. That's going to be fun. But tonight we are talking about Hannibal, the town that lets you know that Mark Twain is from here. Everything in this town has his name attached to it, his face attached to it. I was watching one guy who was like, I don't know if you guys ever seen the driving videos where people will just drive through a town. The guy's whole description of the video was Mark Twain's from here. I never would have thought so, because just he's driving and it's just like Mark Twain Cafe, Mark Twain's house, Mark Twain Cave, just anything they can throw his name on. They found a way to throw his name on, but it's part of the history of this town. And
it's funny because he's viewed as a positive character, but if you drive through Fall River, everything is dedicated to Lizzie Borden, who was most likely an axe murderer, allegedly. Yeah, but you got Lizzie Borden Cafe, Lizzie Borden Banking, Lizzie Borden Life Insurance, Lizzie Borden this, the actual Lizzie Borden house. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, a great time to bring that up, because tomorrow our episode about Lizzie Borden is dropping on Jericho's show. So check out Talk is Jericho to hear the Lizzie Borden episode.
Yeah. Is he dropping that on YouTube as well? And because we actually, for those that didn't know, we actually we went to the Lizzie Borden house and filmed the actual episode, sat down, did the entire episode while inside of the Lizzie Borden episode, which was kind of next level podcasting in my opinion. So he got to do the ghost tour. We had obviously done the ghost tour before, and we set up and recorded right there. It was great. Big shout out to Kevin Tachi from Monday Night Talk on WATD 95.9 FM, who had his crew out there filming the whole thing. Had the professional crew out there. It was very good, very good. Yep. So excited for that. We love Jericho, and we're excited to check that out.
Yes, but we need to jump into Hannibal because we have so much to cover in this town. Probably could have done 2 parts, but we're gonna leave it. We put it all in one big meaty episode for this one. But let's talk about let's go in reverse order from what we aired. We're going to talk about the Old Baptist Cemetery first. And this was established in 1837. It's currently the oldest cemetery in Hannibal.
Apparently haunted by the ghost of my daughter.
Haunted by the ghost of your daughter, for sure.
She's not dead. Just the image that Rob generated of the ghost girl looked exactly like Juliet.
Creepy. Yeah, it looked a lot like her. It's no longer...
Sorry, just real quick, another $20 in Super Chat for Ireland. We can actually literally put this towards an Ireland fund because we were so close to setting up Ireland as the trip. I was dead set on going to Ireland, and we ended up doing a bunch of awesome places instead because we couldn't quite pan it out exactly right. But yeah, we'll put that towards the Ireland fund, which I vote would be the next trip. We'll address that later.
We had the option of having a stopover in Ireland on the way home on St. Patrick's Day. But Rob and I were talking about it, like, there's no way we want to do that. We just want the direct. We're going direct. If it was like on the way, maybe, but like on the way home, you want to be direct, I think.
Yes.
I think so. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Let's talk about this cemetery. Like I said, it was established in 1837. Currently, it's the oldest cemetery in Hannibal, and we're going to get back to that in a second. But not too much to cover on this. This is the cemetery where Mark Twain's father and brother were buried. However, no longer buried there. He had them moved in 1876 to the Mount Olivet Cemetery. So they were buried there and then unburied and brought down the street to the Mount Olivet. It's no longer active either. They don't. There's no new interments at this place. They had Civil War soldiers buried here, early citizens of the town, stuff like that. But the reason why I say it's currently the oldest is because everyone attributes this cemetery to the cemetery that's in the book The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. Like, they have the plaque outside of the cemetery and everything. But a map was found, and I actually have it. There was a map found that was from 1854. And what this map shows is a cemetery. I mean, not that this means anything to anybody that's not from Hannibal, but this map shows.
Can you pull up a smaller map?
I could try. I actually know how to zoom in though, which is the good thing.
Sweet.
So where this cemetery is all residences and other stuff now, businesses and such. But they were saying, like, they used this, that description of the Old Baptist Cemetery from Tom Sawyer's talks about how that's like this old dilapidated cemetery. Old Baptist was like a brand new cemetery at that point in time. So what they think is he might have been talking about this particular cemetery, but he could have been referencing both as well. The interesting thing about this old cemetery that no longer exists, they were supposed to move all the bodies. Tell me if you've heard this story before. So they were supposed to move all the bodies. They built houses on it, and residents of those houses are still finding bones buried in their yard, like up until recently.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It means that they once again didn't do a very good job.
Right. So yeah, it's wild, but I mean, so it could be the Old Baptist Cemetery that he was referencing. It could be this one. It could be mixing them both. He was telling a story and he was drawing from his childhood. So who knows, like, if there was one particular cemetery he was talking about or not. But I found that interesting. And obviously there's the 4 ghosts that haunt here. The ghost of Juliet, as we talked about, the little girl ghost.
Alive and well, totally fine.
The little girl ghost who likes to play hide and seek behind the headstones with people, which is terrifying. I don't want to play hide and seek with any ghost in a graveyard.
No.
Especially
Actually, we do.
we do, but we don't.
Right.
There is also the ghost of the Civil War soldier, sort of like walking the perimeter and walking around in his uniform as well. And the ghost of George, I believe his name was. But it's just a made up name. That's just one of those situations where they just call him that.
Dude, it's not the first made up name. Like, so whenever they don't know the name of a ghost and they give the ghost a made up name, it seems to always be George.
Yeah.
It's a very common name. You should give it a scary name like Victor or something like that, you know?
Or Bucky McHat.
Yeah.
I hope the other ghosts that haunt the cemetery play hide and seek with the kid ghost.
Well, hopefully not that tall, dark figure that just like lingers on the outside of the fence, that just watches you. He doesn't even.
He is playing. He's the one that's still counting. That's why he's lingering.
Probably. Yeah. So that is the cemetery. It's cool. I want to go to Hannibal. I'm going to put this out there now. We obviously are not up to go to the Midwest. We've just done the Midwest, but next time we plan a Midwest trip, I will be pushing hard to go to this town because I think we could get an investigation in here and we could see some really cool stuff in the town of Hannibal.
Cemetery rule: if no one has been buried there in 100 years, you're clear to develop the land. I'll take your word for it, but I got to assume that depends on the cemetery.
That is completely incorrect as well. We've already covered this in multiple episodes that is not how that works.
I don't ever remember covering that. Is that?
I mean, we just talked about it with Asheville, the Paupers Graveyard. They had to move all the bodies.
No, I mean, I know they moved bodies, but I wasn't aware of the 100-year rule.
I would assume that's state by state as well. That's probably not a federal law. But let's talk about Rockcliffe Mansion. Because if we do go to Hannibal, I think this is the place we would stay at and investigate. It is beautiful. And it has a wild story behind it that I kept digging deeper and deeper, and I couldn't even put everything into the episode. So we're going to talk about it here. But, as I said, it was built in between 1898, 1900, cost $125,000 at the time, which is probably about $3 billion in today's money, if I were to do the conversion properly. It was designed by the same firm that built the Missouri's Governor's Mansion. And for the opening reception of the house itself, they had 700 guests with a hired orchestra, which is crazy. Just bring a whole orchestra to the house.
Something we don't do enough of.
That's what we should do for our next live show is we just hire an orchestra.
That's a good idea.
One. If we can fit them into wherever we're going. Would there be more people in an orchestra? Because what is there, 3,000 people in an orchestra?
No.
No. That'd be one amazing orchestra. They're going to be annoyed when I give them the sheet music and it's all synthwave, dark, evil sounding music. Sorry, this is what I do for every episode.
Actually, I bet the Hometown Ghost Story soundtrack would sound dope with a symphony orchestra.
I think you're right.
You just start handing them breaks. Can you just drag this back and forth across the floor for 5 minutes?
I wouldn't tell them to do that.
Well, I mean,
unless the floor needs to be raked.
You got to have an imagination when it comes to music, as I know, as the best music producer on the planet.
Yeah, it's a trick that's not used enough, is dragging rakes across the floor when producing music. We'll let Rob handle the music from now on, folks.
Yeah. So this was the house of the Cruikshanks. And before John married his second wife, he had a first wife. And her name was Mary. And there is a crazy story about John and Mary in the town of Hannibal.
Can we just make sure we have the timeline right? So before the second wife was the first wife, as you made clear?
Correct.
All right, I got it. You guys just write it down if you need to, guys.
So this is before the house was obviously built. This is in the 1880s that this happened. And there was this huge uproar in the community where there was an affair that took place. And what was going on is Mary, his wife, came down with some sort of ailment and she had to travel for treatment. And they were such good friends with this other couple that it was agreed that the husband of the other couple would travel with her to these treatments. And it was found out eventually that they were having an affair while they were traveling.
Damn.
That's not where this ends, though, because while they were traveling and having an affair, John was back home with that guy's wife having an affair. And it wasn't a wife swap thing. They didn't know. So
I wouldn't be surprised if they did know and they're like, oh, there they go again. All right.
So they didn't know.
Little revenge.
They didn't know because he hired like a detective to find out during the divorce proceedings. I was reading about, I had like the paper, like the newspaper article on this and stuff. So they were very vague in the papers. I'd have to dig a little bit more to get like all of it, but it's this wild story. So it made like the New York Times. That's how crazy this story was. In Hannibal, Missouri, the New York Times were reporting on this. I mean, he was a lumber baron, so like he had a lot of money, so it was going to get around, but like it was considered a huge scandal. They were all excommunicated from the church. It like divided the church, and it was like this big thing. So
a schism.
Yes. And then he ended up marrying Annie. And you want to talk, you thought that was a scandal? He married Annie. Do you want to know how he met Annie?
How did he meet Annie?
She was engaged to marry his son, and he threatened the son with disinheritance if he didn't step aside and let himself marry Annie.
That's a dysfunctional family, man. That's not good.
That was a test. That was a test for his son to make sure it was true love. And his son cared more about money. This is all on the son.
Yeah, well, that's what ended up happening with them. And I'm laying all this out because what ends up happening is they move into Rockcliffe Manor, this gorgeous house, this beautiful house. 1902, Mark Twain comes for his final visit to Hannibal. They hold an event in his honor, right? And they have this like beautiful home with their kids. And while they're living there, it's said that he would go out at night, like late at night, and the servants' stairs were right next to Annie's bedroom. So instead of going out the main entrance, he would always go out the servants' entrance so that when he left for his late night wanderings, which was to go see other women, that he would take that route and slam the door so that she knew that he was leaving.
I was going to say, you're not being very sneaky if you're slamming the door.
But he didn't want to be sneaky.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that kind of leaves us to show what kind of like family life was there, and why as soon as he passed away, she just grabbed some of her stuff. She walked out the house, walked next door because her daughter lived next door, and never went back in the house again. And the house just sat there vacant for over 40 years.
Mm.
So,
yeah, not a healthy family.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there.
Too much.
So, sounds like he might not have been a good guy.
Someone commented, "Aren't there any other people in this town?" Great question. Like, get out and meet someone.
Yes.
$2 in super chat from Laurie says, "Annie, are you okay? Are you okay, Annie?"
Yeah.
You know, that's a good line. Someone should make a song out of that.
That's true.
Rob, get on that. Drag a rake and
grab some rakes. Rob's about to make some music. Moonwalking with his rakes.
So that is part of the haunting now, is hearing that pathway of somebody walking down the servants' entrance loudly and leaving the house.
And there's also reports of the slamming door too.
Right, the door slamming, and also him returning. And one of the creepier hauntings is the bedroom that he stayed in. The bed in there will have an impression of somebody laying there when nobody was in that room at all.
Mm.
So that's a very terrifying haunting. We covered some of the hauntings in the opening, but there's another one from a tour guide named Rhonda who has seen Cruikshank watching her through a kitchen window. she's seen him roaming the house and strolling along the porch. She won't go upstairs and won't stay alone in the house.
Mm-hmm. They also have one of those portraits where the eyes follow you, kind of like at the Winslow house.
Yeah. Do they really?
So,
I didn't see that one.
Yeah.
There's also been reports of girls playing in the ballroom and a woman in a black dress on the staircase. So,
Just for the record, you know that's every portrait.
Stop ruining all the fun. So that's not the only. There's also sightings in the music room of a woman believed to be the same woman in black.
yeah, which they believe is Annie. We talked about that a little bit in the opener, but yeah, they believe that's Annie that's walking through the music room.
Slight correction. That's every portrait except the one behind Rob. The eyes, in fact, do not follow you in the portrait behind Rob.
They did, but as you can see, Rob carved them out. So they just stopped following them around the room.
Yes, I actually just have a portrait of the eyes in the other room.
On the other side of that wall, you should get the eyes.
According to a lot of the investigators that and tour guides and people who have experienced hauntings at this house, they don't describe these or the feeling in there as like an evil feeling. In fact, they describe it as more of like a protective. Now, I don't know if that's protective over the house or protective over the child spirits that are there or what, but I've heard it multiple times referred to as like protective hauntings. So a little bit different. Sometimes you get tons of those bad hauntings, right? Evil spirits and things like that. You get lots of them that seem more positive and playful, but protective is kind of a different one.
Mm.
Yeah, because everything with John seems more residual. So anything intelligent doesn't really seem to be him that we've uncovered, because it's like the same patterns over and over. He's walking a certain way, slamming the same door.
Hey, you've already painted the picture that the man's womanizer. You have to go calling him an idiot ghost too. Yeah, he's not intelligent.
And then there's the other thing with him is the cigar smoke, which, another bingo card item. And what cracks me up about the cigar smoke is he was a known cigar smoker. Like if you look up anything on him, but because Mark Twain smoked cigars, everyone's like, maybe it's Mark Twain because he was there once. And you know what? Maybe it was, but if I had to put my money on it, it's probably the guy that smoked cigars in that house every day for 25 years.
Also, if I were to put my money on it, I would say most men probably smoked cigars at this time.
Right.
It was just so much more common than it is now. So,
yeah. So, could it be Mark Twain? Sure. Is it probably John Cruikshank? I would say more likely than Mark Twain. Although it was his last visit to Hannibal when he went there. So, maybe a lingering memory of Mark Twain. So, it could be. But I haven't seen anyone say that they've communicated with Mark Twain in there, at least. So, that is the other thing about Mark Twain there. Do you guys have anything?
I was going to think, like, with a town that's so like dedicated to Mark Twain, if you believe in the theory that, if enough people are breathing energy into it and saying his name and dedicating things to him, that maybe that's a place that his spirit is more likely drawn to. So I wouldn't really rule it out.
Yeah. So I was thinking along those same lines, Jesse. So I was looking into his boyhood home because his boyhood home is there. It's a museum now. And I was like, well, if he's haunting anywhere that would make sense or that he spent a lot of time in would be that house. And I couldn't find any reported hauntings on that house at all. Doesn't mean that it's not haunted. Nobody lives there. I don't think anyone's lived there for a long time. But it was pretty interesting. I did find a funny story about that house that I'll just share when I was looking through the Mark Twain stuff. It was either late 1890s or the early 1900s. They were talking about the house in the Hannibal newspaper, and the World's Fair came to them because they wanted to take the house and show it off at the World's Fair, wherever it was that year. And in the newspaper, I'll share it in Discord. I'll find the article again. I downloaded it. But in the newspaper, it was, it said, like, it was like this guy was like George Wallace, whatever his name was. And they're like, he lives at the house now, which is owned by his 9-year-old granddaughter who was an orphan. And I was like taken aback by the wording of that. Like, I guess she's technically an orphan, but she lives with her grandfather, so she doesn't have no family.
I guess he just must have been using the word orphan suggesting that her parents were dead.
Right. I'll just read the article because I have it here, and it's titled "The Old Home of Mark Twain May Be Removed to St. Louis for the World's Fair," and it just goes, "There is a possibility of Hannibal's losing the old homestead of Mark Twain. As the journal readers know, the old house stands on Hill Street and is occupied by Frank Ellis. The house is owned by Mr. Ellis's little granddaughter, Nellie Ferguson, aged 9 years, who was an orphan." So,
yeah, it's a strange way of wording it, but I think it makes sense. I mean, if her parents own the house and then it got passed down to her, but she's going to remain in her grandfather's custody until she's of age, and then I don't think she's out there repairing the roof and stuff, but
she's probably not
that time. You can't rule it out.
But when you read this full article, it goes on where like all the negotiations were going through her. Like she was the one talking to her. She's like, they better pay me this amount of money. I'm like, she's 9 years old. Like, how is she negotiating moving an entire house to the World's Fair?
I feel like there has to be an adult in the room when those negotiations are happening. How about Skittles? I will give you Skittles for your house. And I will throw in one pass to Great Wolf Lodge.
Yeah, so just a different time where 9-year-olds were essentially, at the midpoint of their life and were negotiating housing deals.
Oh, by then she had 3 kids already and everything, different time.
Different time.
She's like, let me finish my cigar and then we'll negotiate further.
Just as all clever businessmen and women and children do.
Oh, now we have an orphan Annie too. Look at this. It's all coming around full circle, isn't it?
Yes. Who's Nellie was her name, but it's all
just
good.
Keep the Annie joke going. It's fine.
Yes. And let's talk about what really drew me to covering this town, which is the cave, which is now named the Mark Twain Cave, which, yes, he played there as a child. I don't know if you needed to name it the Mark Twain Cave.
Well, they name everything the Mark Twain thing.
They do. They
could have named it after the crazy doctor who used it.
That's who they should have named it after.
Should have done, yeah.
I mean, he did, and that guy even owned it at one point. So, name it after that guy.
Maybe he named it the Mark Twain Cave.
That name hadn't even been invented yet by Samuel Clemens. He's just
like, I just got a feeling. This is called the "You Won't Find Samuel in Here Doing Weird Experiments with His Family" cave.
But I went down a whole. We're not going to get into everything with him, but we're going to talk about some of it because Dr. Joseph McDowell was quite a guy, and it just I think I sent you guys something on just a whole 20-minute thing on just how insane he was.
I just love that he had his whole medical hospital where he was doing these experiments. He had his students out literally grave robbing for him. It was like part of the curriculum basically. But then he's like, you know what? This isn't creepy enough. I'm going to go do some more of this in a dark cave instead.
Multiple dark caves.
Yeah.
Not even just this one. I mean, this is the one with the haunting, but Amanda wasn't the first of his children that he had put in one of these cylinders. He had some younger children that died like much younger that he did this with, and it said that he had them at the actual college in the cylinders for a little while. We couldn't confirm that, but there was an area where he would have hung the cylinders. So there's that. And when his wife died, he placed her in the same type of alcohol-filled copper coffin and buried her in one of the Cahokia Indian mounds across the Mississippi River in Illinois. And then he had his medical school built specifically so that he could see her burial area from the roof with a telescope.
So weird.
Gotta keep an eye on her just in case.
So weird. It's like the oldest form of a baby monitor.
Yes. Yeah, building a school
with a telescope on top. I gotta keep an eye on the family.
Yeah.
Well,
that wasn't the only thing on the roof. He had the cannons up there too. I guess one of the cannons it was rumored to be from Lafitte, who we had covered Lafitte's tavern in our our New Orleans episode. And Lafitte was a pirate. We got pirates.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah. And the cannons are wild because it's like the Lafitte story, and then they said that he might have melted down a church bell to make another one of the cannons, which seems odd.
I thought it was a bell from the school, but I might be wrong.
Oh, that's what it was, from the school itself. So it's just, and he had like 14, what did I say it was? 1,400 guns that he purchased from the army.
Not only that, like he had his students making sure that these weapons were cleaned properly, primed, ready to fire. This man was waiting for an invasion. He was waiting for a mob to come attack him. And then they did. It's just
multiple times.
Yeah. Not that he didn't deserve some sort of public uprising because he was stealing corpses and stuff like that. But it's why, like if you were a student and you're like, listen, I'm just trying to get my medical degree. He's like, no, prime the muskets. You're gonna be like, this just doesn't feel like it's part of what I should be doing in my day-to-day activities to pass this class. But then the mob's outside and they're like, oh, do we have to shoot? Do we have to shoot up the town folk now? I don't know.
Not only did he have them priming the muskets, he had them feeding the bear that was down in the basement as well.
The best is that the bear didn't give a shit. That's a true story that you had told in the opening, where he unleashed the bear on the mob. The bear just kind of goes out, looks around. It was all confused. He just yawns, and then he just kind of doesn't do anything. And everyone's like, oh, the bear. Oh, it doesn't seem to care at all.
Yes. Yeah, wild story. He might have even kept more like animals down in the basement. In fact, during the Civil War, the Union Army took the school and used it as like a hospital. And allegedly they found the bones of the bear in the basement at that point in time, as well as finding multiple body parts and skeletons down there, which makes sense. They were, like it was a medical school. So
he stole corpses.
He stole corpses.
It all adds up.
My favorite detail about him, well, there's a lot of favorite details about him, but one of my favorites is like he like idolized Andrew Jackson so much that he read about his mannerisms and like what he wore and tried to copy exactly what Andrew Jackson looked like and like how he dressed and moved.
Hairstyle and everything. If you look at a picture of this guy, you're like, oh, that's Andrew Jackson. No, it's not.
Yeah, it does look a lot. He looked similar to Andrew Jackson. So like you said, so that was interesting. The brass breastplate that he wore around town, because he loved his students and his students loved him, but it seemed like he hated 95% of the rest of St. Louis. Like he didn't like.
I think it was more in the lines of he knew he was actively pissing everybody off by stealing corpses, and like word was getting around town. Obviously they retaliated. So I think this was more of a protective measure because he was pissing off the world, but maybe he also hated everyone in St. Louis, but they weren't too fond. You steal someone's, family member's corpse, they're going to be pretty upset with you, I think.
Yeah. But he also would just stand on the street and openly preach about how he hated Catholics amongst other people of St. Louis. So he would just like stand out there and just start talking about like how he hated certain people, Catholics, Black people, amongst others. Like he just would stand on the corner.
You're not making many friends by doing that. $13.99 in super chat from Colleen D says, feeling gratitude for these talented creators in this awesome place to be on any given Tuesday. That's a great comment. Thank you so much. I appreciate the donation. Colleen, absolutely legendary.
Thank you, Colleen. So yeah, this dude, if you get a chance, go and look into the history of this guy, because not a good person, but wild. And also the story about his mother appearing right? When during one of these mob attacks on the building, he's like running upstairs with the body of this patient that he was treating. He was treating her, she died, and then he wanted to study what killed her, like what the disease was, and if he could have done anything, which makes sense to us today, but back then obviously didn't. And the parents weren't happy about it. They found out that he took the body. Everyone storms the medical school. He's running up to the attic.
This is such a Scooby-Doo scene.
Yeah.
I do wonder how many doorways they went out while the other one crossed the hall from another doorway. That must have happened at least 6 times.
Had to have. So as he's running to the attic, his mother just appears, like the ghost of his mother, and is like, lay on the dissecting table. And he does it, and he gets away with it. How do they not realize that it's him?
They must have pulled it back. Like, oh, that's Andrew Jackson.
Yeah. They said that they only looked at his boots, and they were like, oh, he just died. He still has his boots on. It's like, all right, man. Well,
like, okay, you're checking for him. Like, they're not just checking bodies anyways. Like, you're checking, or they might have been looking for the corpse
daughter.
that they thought was stolen. Okay. Which is funny, because was this the case where it turned out that she wasn't even dead?
No, that's another case.
That's another time the mob stored the looking for a corpse. Sorry, I got my identical incidents mixed up. Carry on.
No, so that's the story of that one. Like, so his mother shows up, and he tells this story. That one you're talking about is a funny one, because what happened with that one is a woman from St. Louis went missing, and someone found a piece of clothing, like a little piece of clothing, near his school. So the entire town just assumed he took her and killed her to use her body to dissect and stuff. So the story
evolves. I'm
right.
Sorry, were you about to take this point where, like, now we found a whole pile of clothes?
Right. Yeah. They were like, now it's a whole pile of clothes. Now it's everything she owns. Like, it just kept evolving. And the police came. He was ready he had like his guns ready. The police came. They looked around. Nothing was there. 2 months later, she's found, and in the newspaper, she's living she's like married to somebody new. And in the newspaper it goes, Mrs. Smith was found in this town with a more handsomer man.
Just twist the knife while it's in. Why not?
Yeah. So let's go back to what he was doing with his family members, though, which is like putting them in those cylinders. And the reason he did this is because he felt like if he could preserve their bodies, he could actually communicate with the dead. He thought that burying them like severed that a little bit. So he would put them in these cylinders so that he could try to communicate with his children, with his wife as well. And that was his whole reasoning behind it. So it's just like this.
And this is the guy who has seen and communicated with ghosts before, at least in his own mind. So obviously he would think that this is possible.
Right. And I found it intriguing because, like, a medical doctor is usually not one that would at least openly discuss their beliefs in the paranormal. And yet it was like part of his daily life, and he just would talk about it. So obviously an eccentric man with a bunch of, character flaws and stuff. I'm
literal skeletons in his closet. Yeah.
Little skeletons in his closet. But yeah, it was a interesting story, and I definitely think if you get a chance, look into Dr. Joseph McDowell, because what a crazy story. He became a doctor because his uncle was like one of the most renowned doctors. He performed one of the first like tumor surgeries, and they had a falling out because he wanted to marry and married his uncle's daughter.
Damn
it. And
this whole episode is packed full of them. What's going on?
Nice job, Missouri. So, yeah.
But his daughter's ghost is seen in this cave.
Right.
And people have described it as so realistic that they think it's just an actual person, until sometimes she disappears into the wall. Sometimes she just turns more into a ghostly figure and then vanishes.
It could be because her ghost has
preserved in alcohol. That's why, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Multiple tour guides have seen her.
We're gonna be such good ghosts by preserving our bodies in alcohol right now, just to prepare for the afterlife.
So many people have seen her, and they usually think that she's just like somebody that's doing some sort of reenactment when she's there at first, and then, like you said, they'll see her disappear through a wall or something.
Really convincing reenactment.
Yes. I did see some reports that people have said they've seen her walking through town, which sort of is why I did what I did with the opening ghost story, but those aren't nearly as prominent as everything in the cave.
Yeah,
Cave
there was
seems
an
to be the
incident
spot.
in 1967 where 3 boys, they disappeared near the cave,
Yep.
and some attribute that to maybe something lured them into the cave and they never made their way out, but it's unsolved. They never, as far as I know, they never found any of them.
Yeah, that was in 1967. As you said, it was Billy Hogue, Joey Hogue, and Craig Dowell. And they went exploring after school. They never came home. They were never seen again. We can't get into that whole story, but there's a lot. Like, if you listen, I'm sure there's plenty of true crime stuff. It ranges from government cover-ups to some believe that they might have been abducted by John Wayne Gacy. So, like, that is a wild story if you ever want to, like, look into that one. The cave also is assumed to have been used as a place that Jesse James hid out at one point.
Oh,
So I don't think that they were ever able to confirm that, but it's alleged that he used it as a hideout at one point.
that is
But-
pretty cool.
Yeah. And that is that's Hannibal, Missouri. There's a lot going on there. We got through it all, but
Hannibal, Missouri, also the hometown of the unsinkable Molly Brown. I believe we've
Thank
talked
you.
about her before.
I meant to bring that up and I forgot to, so thank you.
Yeah, she was the real life Titanic survivor who was played by Kathy Bates in the movie, but a philanthropist who went on and did big things.
Yeah.
Yep. There's a couple other spots as well. There's Finn's Food and Spirits, which is on Main Street. Used to be a tavern, brothel, gambling hall, but there's 2 main spirits that are reported there. There's the ghost of a little girl. Most describe her as between like 8 and 9 years old. She's got long blonde curly hair, and she's wearing a cream-colored dress. She's believed to, I think this is all legend, but she's believed to have been abandoned, and then she froze to death in the late 1800s. And now she throws straws, as you would expect.
Yes.
She
Who doesn't?
throws straws across the floor. When she's upset, she will pull people's hair. Her ghost will appear in mirrors. They've seen her running across the patio, and she has also been seen dancing and twirling. So that must be when she's in a better mood, because she's not throwing straws across the floor anymore. And the other ghost is an older gentleman. He has he wears a black hat. He has a gray beard and mustache. He usually has a cane. Sometimes he's seen as a chimney sweep in a long black coat. So he allegedly died falling through the roof in the back corner. That's not how I expected him to die. He appears in the banquet room, booth, or office, and then you have the smell of cigar smoke that is tied to him. But this has a bunch of paranormal activity that they attribute to his ghost. Doors that will jiggle or pop open. Last week we had flapping doors. Today we have jiggling doors. There's a bunch of electronic malfunctions that will happen that they attribute to his ghost. I don't know why these certain things are attributed to one ghost or the other, but just approaching this with an open mind. The electronic things with lights and TVs turning on and off. There's objects that will move around. Shot glasses in S patterns. Don't know what that means. Maybe they get lined up like maybe the shot glasses get arranged in like what looks like the shape of the letter S.
Yeah.
S for shot. He will slide. There's high chairs that are sliding. Dish carts will flip. Spoons will tap and then bang. There are voices laughing and talking upstairs. I think this must be separate hauntings, because this can't be the older gentleman, because they report women that were laughing in talking upstairs. So I would assume that's probably a ghostly residual haunting from the days of it being a brothel, or still could be when it was a tavern or gambling hall. But there's also the ghost sighting of a woman in a Victorian dress, which does appear in the mirror. And then, like we said, there's also the physical sensations, which people feel tugs and like a pressure on the chest. And a lot of people just sense that they're being followed around.
Going back to the chimney sweep thing, have you guys ever looked into the life of like a chimney sweep from like the 1800s?
Yeah, from like Europe? The age of like 4 years old on.
Yeah, where they would just stuff them in a chimney and just like bake them. I mean, I don't mean to laugh, but like it's so insane to me. If you ever want to go read about horrifying stories, the life of chimney sweeps in the Victorian era and before, like in Europe, was insane because it was all children.
It's because they'd fit in the chimney.
Right. And they would just put them in there. And if they wanted to come out, they'd be like, nah, stay in there a little longer. And then they would never come out.
Yeah. Well, Dave, it's nice to know that if we ever learn how to time travel, there'll be work out there for the both of us.
Yeah.
It's either that or riding horses as jockeys in a race.
Yes.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. I also love that place was called Finn's, which is clearly based on Huckleberry Finn, because
just another one. Yep.
Cannot get away from some sort of Mark Twain reference there, which is fine. I like lean into it, man. You got something, lean into it.
Yep.
It's fine.
It's either that or the creepy cave, dude. I mean, if you got to pick between the two, Mark Twain's a safe bet.
Did you have any other places, Jesse, or do you want me to hop into some reviews?
There's the old Baptist church, the ruins, the Bear Creek Baptist Church. Did you mention that, or was that the old cemetery that you had mentioned?
The old Baptist cemetery is the one that I covered. There was another ghost story about like some howling ghost or something that happened.
Yeah, Screaming Johnny,
which was debunked as teenagers playing pranks.
Okay.
That's why I didn't cover it. But I should have brought it up because it is one of the local lores that pops up, but that was debunked. It was a bunch of kids that were playing pranks on
just
people that
screaming
would
in the cemetery.
Yeah, they would just start screaming. Yeah.
So. Yeah, it seemed like most of it was based in legend anyways, but I mean, like there was accounts. I mean, people, yeah, maybe they were just all being pranked, but there was one fireman who saw a ghostly apparition in the cemetery. He described it as the ghost of a boy. So could still be haunted. Maybe what that fireman saw was different than the pranks that were being pulled. Because as far as I know, the pranks were probably just kids screaming in the cemetery at night, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. So could still be haunted, but it's it always kind of spoils the fun when people are out there pulling pranks and basically discrediting the reputation of a place that could be haunted anyways.
Right. Let's hop into some reviews that I got here. Over on Apple, SPC Epos, titled There's Loyal Listener. And just simply put, I love that they do research about the places they cover. So thank you for that. We do.
This would not be a good show if we didn't.
No. I mean,
but there are shows out there who don't. They just pull up a Wikipedia page
shows.
And read straight from it, and that's it.
I've heard those shows. From email, Annette sent us an email saying that she loves wearing her shirt with a big ghost on the back out in public, which is very cool. You can get your merch at hometownghoststories.com. And over on Spotify, you guys are killing it. We had so many comments on last week's episode. Thank you guys for that. I pulled a couple of them here. Yoda said, another awesome episode. Watching you guys is the highlight of my day. And Tammy wrote, fantastic episode, 5 stars. How do you pick the towns and cities to cover? Do you just throw a dart at the map? Feels like it sometimes. I think we all have different processes. Mine is evolving depending. Sometimes I pick a state that I want to try to cover and then go through the towns there. I use ghostquest.net a lot, which gives you like a very brief summary of hauntings at different locations. And then I really dig into them after that. But there's so many different ways that I pick
It's a
towns
really,
now.
really long-winded way of saying I don't have a method.
I usually start with my haunted library, and I refer to my books. I have many books on haunted places, so I'll try to pull some literature on a place that I haven't covered yet. But a lot of times it is kind of a dark road. It's like, I wonder if there's any hauntings in Green Bay or whatever, and just look up the town. And spoiler, every city or town that you look up, we've said it before, and it's kind of like in our slogan: every town has a ghost story. So you'll find something anywhere you look. And then a lot of it comes from wonderful recommendations from our listeners and followers. They'll give us recommendations on places that we should cover, and eventually we will get to all of them.
I hope that after we're all long gone, that your house is haunted by the sounds of Cersei's tip-tapping around that room.
Every one of my recordings is haunted by her tip-tapping around the room. So I swear, she knows when I'm recording, because that's like, she'll be sitting sleeping for hours, and then as soon as I turn on the microphone and start recording, two things happen. One, dog starts running by. Number two is our group chat just lights up, and I can't be like, guys, shut up, because it's always important or whatever. I just usually literally throw my phone into the other room without fail.
Do you have a process, Dave?
Yeah, I go based on a haunting. I find a haunting that I like, that I find interesting, and then I figure out what town it's in and find other hauntings in that town.
Yeah. So all different ways.
Let's hop into our patrons real quick, starting with our VIPs. We have Lori H. Wyatt F. The doctor had more cylinders than Rob's car.
That was a good one.
Whatever happened to Huska Castle? Massel Medic Jennifer A. Can we all agree that the Yankees suck? Yes, that still holds true. KCW Brendina 77, Kathy F. Ghost Nurse JP. Y'all ain't right.
Jesse, don't you have an Aaron Judge figure on your shelf?
Oh, you do.
I do. Yeah, this was a gift, and I was doing one of those things where you take pictures of it. I don't know where it went. I might have thrown it in the trash again, but you do. It was a gift from one of my employees who is a Yankees fan. So he was like, I got you a really nice gift. And it was like one of these pop, whatever they are, Funko Pop things of Aaron Judge. Anyways, so I started taking pictures. I took a picture of it, and he's like, because he texted me, he's like, where did you put it? Did you put it on your shelf? And I just took a picture of it. It was like in my blender. Took a picture of it on the stove. Took a picture of it, of course, in the trash. Took a picture of me punting into traffic. Yeah, it's turned into a fun thing. Anyways, yeah,
we could take a video of us throwing it out the plane into the Atlantic Ocean next week if you want.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's frowned upon on planes to open the door.
Yeah.
But
open the window.
Just roll the window down. Yeah.
In fairness, I haven't tried it, so I don't know. Anyways, we have Tess. We have got outbid on Wilkins coffee. Oh no, Wilkins coffee tin. Hoping it wasn't. No. Kate and Steve M, Kelly C, Jennifer P, Liz Young, Chris C, LBPS founder. Now we had played some of the Wilkins coffee commercials in our Patreon exclusive content. So if you're on Patreon, make sure you go check that out. It was on the latest Patreon content that we put out, which was the unfavorable semicircle. But we had found out about this brand. So if you have time, if you're not on Patreon, join Patreon. But if you can't afford it, that's okay. Just hop on over to search on YouTube. Wilkins Coffee was a brand a long time ago, and the commercials are done by Jim Henson or Jim Henson.
Jim Handsome.
Handsome Jim. That's not what I said, but yeah, we'll go. Handsome Jim did the commercials, and but they were hilarious and very violent. So go check those out. It's pretty funny. It is. Kate and Steve M, Kelly C, Jennifer P, Liz Young, Chris C, LBPS founder, Inspires Gaming, Allison V, Robert H, Janine, Pet Grizzlies are the best.
Yes.
Yeah.
Careful. That's Jeannie. Sorry. Mom and Pops W. Yes, I am Papa Squatch, Lisa J, and I cover mirrors with more mirrors. Those are the VIPs. Thank you so much for being part of the Church of the Bucky McCat Elders. Next up, we have the Warrens Wards. And let's kick that off with the wonderful Aussie H, Susan V, Blake Hendricks, Tamara A, Nikki, Linda F, Kegsy and Wales, Robin the Witch from Virginia, Crystal V, Bat Masterson's Evil Clone, Rat Bastardson, Colleen D, Joe and the Dogs, Freya and Frank found the character limit last week for Patreon names. You did it. Many still struggle, but you found it. Susan C, T-Cat, Whisper, Kitten Clown Dozer, Jeremy M, Beth C, Sarah B, Her Lady Spookship, Victim of Ohio, Colby always remembers, Kath Q, Marfire, Anthony T is just grateful to start today on the positive side of the frost line. Rob has a snowman belly button. Brass breastplates beat brass ball plates. Seth on guitar and number one podcast. Thank you so much for being part of the Warren's Words. And finally, we'll hop into the Ghost Pirate Mafia. You could join Patreon. $3 a month will get you there. Ad-free episodes, all sorts of other goodies. But let's kick off the Ghost Pirate Mafia with our newest member, Nori H. Ronan Christmas. Get back to work. The Luda Joker 07, Lil Cat 02, Jet L, Rachel P, Jody L, PD Pablo rapping for Ghost Pirates and Al Capone. Chicky Ticky 67, FM Cop. W is free. Patrice R, Cammy and Steve R, Whitby's Hand of Glory TV. GS Warrior, Mothman heard little girls, ghosts calling people chicken. Dave bathes in Rob's used hot dog water. GOB, D loves ketchup on eggs, just ghostly. Witchy Kitty 416, Karen L, Michael M, Amber R, Brent C, Shane O'Mac, Kate C, Kelly C, bloop, bloop, bloop. Cowboys are the worst franchise ever. Miss Macabre, Nuroku, Rachel G, Cold Warrior. How long until we get a reported sighting of the ghost of the Ayatollah? They actually tweeted out like hours after his death. They had tweeted out a picture of him back as a ghost with a sword. So it was pretty much immediate, actually. Yeah. So we already have a ghost sighting. It's on his own Twitter account. We have D from H-Town, Meta A, Dave D, Wicked Alley, Dark Snark. History would look very different if during the Battle of Waterloo in 1815, Napoleon used orbital bombardment lasers.
Nice.
Yes. Correct.
Yeah.
Arcade Hunters, Wayne C, Crystal Quinn, Halloween 3 is the best, and Rob has bad taste. Thick Boy Freddy's Baby Mama was definitely yeeted. Alicia E, the artist formerly known as Thick Boy Freddy. Boiled chicken haunts Jesse's dreams. That is accurate and horrifying. And is that? Oh, we do have another page. I was going to say that. That sounds short. Sam from Nepal, Joe R. My name is Al Capone. Huggy Bear. Lugosi was better than Karloff. Fight me. Anna C, Solar Flare, Mariah M, Kirilee J, Cody G, Hooply Whooply, Soph, and King Charles II. All right.
Nice.
Yikes. This is getting long, folks. We appreciate that. I think that'll pretty much do it. This one's running a little long, but shout out to everybody who donated on YouTube during this live stream. If you're listening to this audio podcast, you're missing out. You could hop on YouTube. We also stream on Facebook and Twitch, but most people watch on YouTube. And join us. The community is great. You could join the Discord, chat with people all week long, share your ghost stories, share your funny ghost memes, whatever. And, become part of the community. We love to have everybody tuning in live. But shout out to everyone who donated. Lockwood and Company, Papa Squatch, Lori H, Tess, Lori again, and Colleen Dees. Thank you so much for your gifted donations and your other donations. So that'll pretty much do it. Anything else, gentlemen?
No, I had a Southern accent for like half my life, so
I think you did.
I did.
Now you just have this weird hybrid where you can't pronounce certain words.
Yeah, it's really ruined me. Go back and forth between a Boston accent and a Southern accent, and then back to the New England accent. It's destroyed my vocabulary.
Isn't that how that strange Maine accent that is in Stephen King movies was created?
Yeah.
I'm sad you didn't. I'm sad you didn't end up with that. I gotta be on the other side of the road.
You don't want to go up that road.
Look at that. You got your accents after all. It was brief, but anyways, we'll be back next week. So we will be back with an episode on Tuesday, and then we leave on Wednesday, right? So
there'll be content on all the normal days.
Yeah, there will be content, and I think because that other Tuesday will still be in. We'll still be overseas, but there will be a YouTube premiere that'll air live. We'll have something set up ready to roll for you guys. So there will not be a missed Tuesday, even though we are international. Go ahead, Dave.
It's because we're very busy. You will have a Friday the 13th movie review on the next Friday the 13th, which is in March. We'll be away for it, but you're going to want to watch that one because we're not going to agree.
Oh my God. Come on, dude. Really? Oh, we're
teaser.
All right. That'll pretty much do it. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next time for another live episode of Hometown Ghost Stories. Have a great night, guys. Thank you.
Peace.